Good morning and welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center, sponsored by Fieldstone Memory Care, Bainbridge Island. Innovative and compassionate care worth the wait. Call 360-271-2530 to schedule a tour of Fieldstone's beautifully appointed apartments on Rolling Bay today. Well, thank you and good morning, everybody. And it is my pleasure to introduce you Tom Hansen, who has a photo show of Ultimate Africa. So, Tom, how are you today?
Really good, but I'm just getting my daily call from somebody in Texas that
they'll just have to wait.
I could have a problem with my Windows operating system, but I don't know. So anyway, hey, I'm joining you in spirit today from a camp in Chobe, Botswana, as I drink my morning coffee, really wishing for an evening sundowner beverage. So this just gives you a kind of a picture of my background of, just that relaxing feeling that you would get in a camp. Okay, I've labeled this kind of grouping or show the Ultimate Africa. That's what the tour was called, and it kind of was. And it's not a trip of a lifetime. I want to go back, and I probably want to go back several times. I'm just waiting. I took this trip in 2018, and it was to South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Botswana, and kind of in kind of a circle and a roundabout sort of way. I'm going to try to make this more about photography than kind of a travel log. Kind of the emphasis of putting this all together is I got a gift certificate for a photo album, and so I basically wanted to take my prints. I took probably close to 10,000 images, or photos. Some of them were photos and some of them were images in this trip, and had boiled them down and made some slideshows, but I really wanted to take them into print. And so I ended up with a photo album of about 200 pages. And some of those pages had multiple photo albums. There were just so many, animals and things and stuff. So this was an interesting challenge to bring them down to, a smaller number. And there was some, thinking about that. And so that's kind of what started that. I'm looking to travel again, but I'm not going anywhere until it's totally safe to do so. The only place that even is tickling my fancy is Iceland, because they've done such a good job with their vaccination and control of the virus. So anyway, but that's about it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Would you like me to start sharing?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start.
Okay.
This first picture is from Johannesburg, South Africa. Basically, just flew into to Johannesburg to catch the tour, but went in a day earlier and basically didn't do a whole lot other than try to get unjet lagged. Went to the Apartheid Museum and basically rode around on a hop on, hop off again bus, and not much. This was actually taken from a bus in fairly low light, and kind of I was intrigued by what I saw, and also intrigued by the fact that before you go somewhere, you usually read up on something about where you're going. And the book that I chose to read was Born a Crime by Trevor. Really interesting book about apartheid from a personal experience and the post-apartheid world. And basically he talked a lot about Sundays and the roaming freely in Johannesburg and the religious experience. And it was very funny and very enlightening, but I saw these pilgrims everywhere I was going, and people that were doing that. And I, the bus kind of stopped for a moment that I could kind of get this semi-blurry picture. So it's not the best picture in the world, but it's one that I really, really like. And it's had a lot of things done to it. This next photo is really a joke. Okay. As we started this adventure in Zimbabwe, it was going to be more about people and culture because our guide was from Zimbabwe, and he had the inroads in here. But on day one, okay, we went to the supermarket shopping for a village, and I got a combo shot of the big five at the supermarket all in one place. And I just said, I can't resist this photo. It was all okay. The rest of the way, I knew I was going to see lots of animals because I saw it at the OK supermarket. So anyway, hey, that's all there is on this one. This was actually kind of in the first game drive, and I was totally amazed by the birds and the people. That was a big surprise. I was, prepared for the animals and all that, but it was all the birds, and this was like sunrise on kind of day one, and I really like, the fact that I actually captured this in a fairly sharp way. I mean, it's shot at 400 millimeters, and at a ridiculously high speed, and as I was looking at some of the I actually went back and looked at the metadata for some of these pictures, and I was asking myself, well, why did I have all those settings and stuff like this? So it was kind of a learning experience yesterday as I was going through that. One of the key things, I guess, before I had just taken an intermediate photography class from the Silverdale Club, West Sound, photography club, and we talked a lot about underexposing your photos with exposure compensation, and so that you don't blow out highlights and things like that. And I had just kind of, I'd started in 2015, so I'd just been, doing photography for 3 years and just really starting to get comfortable, mainly doing a lot of manual settings. And sometimes my manual settings worked and sometimes they didn't. And this one, it was a little underexposed that I was able to bring out more, but it was actually a pretty sharp image. And I was actually amazed that I could actually, I got as many sharp images on the birds as I did, because I never really had shot pictures of birds or wildlife for that matter, before.
It's gorgeous.
So Tom, I have a question. I assume you were hand holding your camera for this as opposed to a tripod, which is really hard to do with a phone.
Hand holding was out of a Jeep.
Yeah. Nice.
The only time you got out of the Jeep was when the guides checked behind the bush.
Oh, good idea.
Or we're pouring drinks.
Okay. Oh, beautiful.
And this next one, it's a kind of a red chili-billed hornbill. They were both red and yellow ones. I could never get a yellow one because they were always in motion, and it was hard to get this one. But there were just thousands of these birds, red hornbills flying around. And this is the only picture that I really got that was even reasonably sharp. And I just, but I was really trying. I tried a lot with these and stuff. And also this even took a lot of post-processing to actually bring out and make it sharp. So,
lovely.
the story behind this. And like I said, the first part of this in Zimbabwe was really about people, and we visited a village, shopped for them, brought them a bunch, took a collection of about $5 a person, and went and saw how much we could buy. We went to the local school. They were greeting us. We actually went into classrooms, and you could actually see what they're studying. And we sat and talked with, groups of, of the kids, and took lots of, selfies and all that kind of stuff. But, it was really, and saw what, kinds of computers they had. And it was a really good experience. Of course, this is always kind of staged and whatnot, but it was a reasonably, I think, realistic kind of experience. Okay.
Kids look happy.
Oh, they are. Yeah. You get kids together, they're singing and whatnot, and they're usually always excited to see you and learn about you and get their picture taken and seeing it on the camera and things like that. So that's always a fun thing. Also met the local PTA and bought a Christmas ornament in support of their school and efforts. So that was a fun experience.
That's awesome.
Sorry about that.
Call from Williams John.
My wife's going to get it there. We're good. This is kind of a view from the common area of a camp in Zambia, and this was, in Zimbabwe, it was very much, very dry land kind of thing. This was a whole area by a tremendous series of rivers, the Kafu River, and just very, very beautiful. This really kind of looks like a panorama, but it really wasn't a panorama. There were several pictures that I actually, not knowing, how to do this beforehand, took several pictures and combined these together in Lightroom. They were actually 3 pictures that were using a bracket of underexposing, exposing and overexposing. But there are certain settings that you can actually take and make that same picture into a panorama, and combine the exposures together. And so in post, I started experimenting with that and came out with this image, and it was the winner of all of them and stuff like that. So I had just learned how to do that in that intermediate class, and so I did that a lot.
Kind of a fun thing to do.
Okay.
Oh.
And somebody told me that this is called Hippos and Croc. There are actually 2 crocs in there, and I didn't realize it because I wasn't checking all the edges, a common mistake of most photographers. But there's a big croc in the background and whatnot. So this was basically, I'm trying to think, it was about a 200 meter, so we weren't that close, but it was kind of one of the better hippo shots that I got. Shooting hippos is very hard, and you don't really want that really great shot because they might turn over your boat.
Tom, where are the crocodiles?
Down in the left-hand corner, there's a
because this looks sort of like it looks like a little lizard.
Yeah, it does, but that's a little baby crocodile.
Okay.
And then in the back, right, the group of 2 hippos that are together in the foreground, right straight back is a really large crocodile on the bank.
Way back on the sand back there?
Yeah. Yeah, he's
Wow.
kind of.
That's a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Some of the crocodiles
Cool.
and whatnot, but yeah. This is just one of the pictures I like, you know, the hip, you know, of the hippos and stuff like that.
Are we ready?
This is
Right.
another area where I actually did some bracketing and pulled it together in post. This is an African darter, and basically, you know, it was trying to catch you know, a bird we saw a lot of, and you know, I really like the background and just the coloration of this photo, and that's kind of why I chose it. It was one of my, you know, better than average bird pictures.
Mm. I love the lighting in this one. Beautiful.
I did see all of the big five, although the rhino was a throwdown event. This is was taken at a rhino reserve. They're just not roaming around like all the other animals. This is very protected. We got fairly close, but they were sleeping and they were boring. You know, they were so boring that the rhino guard basically looks pretty bored. But I found that this was a more exciting picture than the actual rhinos themselves. But I did see one, actually two or three. This was in Zambia on the way to Botswana. We were on a kind of a bus ride, and we stopped in this little town. And our challenge today was to basically buy some fabric, okay? And so we went to a number of these places, and this is the chitengi, which is the type of fabric salesman. And this guy was really bound and determined for two things. One, he wanted to sell us some fabric, and he wanted his picture taken. We were looking for a lion, and he showed us a tiger. But this guy was just a very determined guy, and I really, you know, this was, you know, I felt like a good picture. Obviously, it was posed, but the colors and the fabric and the lighting. There's been a lot of work done on this one, but this has been one of, you know, one of my favorite images out of the whole thing.
Yeah, I really liked the colors are great, but you really captured the mood of that young man. He looks really.
Yeah, he was really interesting. And little village, you know, that was kind of, or you know, market that was there, was right on kind of where there's a ferry crossing where you're going from Zambia to Botswana, and it's like intersects like, you know, all the major you know like several different countries, Zambia as well. And so this is just before you get into this long line of trucks and ferry traffic, and everybody is running from the ferry, you know, for the ferry. It, you know, made me homesick for Bainbridge Island.
Yeah, I really like this line.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's go on to the next one here. This is actually in Chobe, Botswana, and kind of our first evening drive, and this is called Sunset Dazzle. We were getting into what are groups of animals, you know, dazzles, a congress of baboons, and you know, that's a very appropriate definition of a congress. But anyway, I love the lighting in this and the reflections, and this is another one where I used bracketing, you know, because they weren't moving that much, so I actually could set my camera to do the multiple exposures, and out of that you always get a good picture if you can use the single ones or you can put them together, and it and yeah, this, you know, you know, it just liked that, the mood. And it was Botswana has the best wildlife policies, and so the animals and the whole vibe compared to what was, Zimbabwe and Zambia, it just was stepped up. And I would go back to Botswana in a heartbeat.
Nice.
And Sundowners, that was magic time. They rolled out the bartender came out with the mixed drinks, which nobody would buy. They had wine and beer, which everybody was partaking in, and some snacks, and basically you got to shoot the sunset every night. And a lot of people had point and shoot cameras, and it's really, really hard to take a picture of a sunset, and because it's always blown out. And so I use my intermediate skills that you have to get the exposure down by setting the exposure compensation to maybe a -2 or -1 on your, or even -3 on your camera, kind of tilted at an angle, and then with a little bit of adjustment of light in Lightroom, you get this marvelous sunset picture. And a lot of the people on the tour just were not getting good sunset pictures, and I was talking to them about that, and it was kind of going over their head. But anyway, it was that was a major learning from that class, and I got to apply it. And I always love to shoot sunsets.
Mm. Oh.
I love these trees. They're totally beautiful. It was in the winter. By the way, it's nice to go there in the winter because it's nice and cold at night, where your water bottle, Bush Baby, will keep you warm at night, and on the morning drive, the water bottle that they put in your blanket keeps you nice and toasty, and then it's a decent temperature during the day and whatnot. I had friends that went in their summertime, which would be our winter time, and it rains a lot, and they were just, it was unbelievably hot, and they had a horrible time. But the winter was just really, really fun. So these trees don't have their leaves on. These baboons were climbing, and they were doing all kinds of things. But I ended up with this picture, and the reason, is these guys look like they're in a car, driving, and it's like it got to be a clown car, and the color, from the sky, it just kind of, made that.
Mm. Gorgeous.
This picture is inspired by Taylor Swift. Okay. Mean Girl and her posse, they always talk about that. And this was an HDR. There were multiple pictures that were really taken together that really brought out this the ugliness of this lady, and the oxpeckers on there kind of came out really good, and whatnot. And this was one of my best water buffalo pictures, and whatnot. I actually entered this one into the Northwest camera competition. I don't know, again, we don't know how well it did unless you win, so whatever. But this is, I really love this picture. Impalas are everywhere, and most of the Impala shots that you get, and a lot of the shots you get of hoofed animals, are butt shots of them running away and whatnot. This was kind of put together, I took a burst, and then learning, how to stitch stuff back together and kind of trying to make a panorama out of it. Really was a learning that was like, this last year, and so I really pulled this together, and I really like just the reflections and this shot, because they're not running away, although they are walking away. Another HDR, because they weren't moving fast. Oftentimes you were taking pictures of things that were moving fast. And so I actually, did multiple exposures of this one. And it was just one of the elephant pictures that I basically liked. This was taken from a fairly far distance away. It's a 400 millimeter shot. Okay. This was interesting, actually getting two different types of eagles on the same in the same shot was really interesting. The top one is a fish eagle, the other one's a marsh eagle, and both of them came out really sharp. Here, it was a big learning experience to actually, by the time I hit this camp, I'd been there for a week, and my ability to capture things a little bit sharper. I was mainly shooting with speed priority and really focusing, not on anything fancy, but just, trying to get, a quick shot, because you never knew when things were going to move. And so, I had changed the way I was shooting, and some of the results were coming out a lot better. But this was a really unique thing where they actually had two different birds on there.
What I think is really neat, Tom, is you mentioned going in the wintertime, the reflections, but also the tree trunks and the branches are so delineated, whereas I presume in the summertime these would be all covered with leaves, right?
I would think so too. Yeah, some of these are kind of look pretty dead too.
Well, I'm thinking about that one that you had before, back about 4 or 5 months before that, yeah, which you had with the curly branches, which were just beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Gorgeous.
It helps with capturing the wildlife too.
Yeah, true.
Wild dogs. And in my intermediate photography class, we had a one-day session with Bonnie Block, who's a professional photographer, a really fantastic photographer in the area. I think she lives in Polsbo. And this is actually in Okavango Delta, and she was on a photo safari, and she was in camp. They spotted wild dogs, and she was the only one that actually got to see them, because they're not that common. They're pretty rare. We started going out on a morning game drive. We had heard hyenas in the camp all night long. We just pulled out onto this highway, and there was a hyena crossing, and then there was this whole pack of wild dogs that were tracking this hyena, and they had lost its scent, and they were searching around and looking for that. And so this was a real opportunity. This is probably one of the most exciting things that I shot the whole time. And I love this. You know, I have a lot of other pictures, but I really love this because you've got the dog in the road and the car, and you know, they're just trotting along, and they're you know, they're looking for that, you know, to pick up the scent and chase that hyena again.
Mm.
Okay. Back to people. Camp songs. I think one of the skills that you have to work in a camp, you have to be able to sing, because they were good. They were really good. The one thing, you know, it wasn't just like these. They were, you know, there, you know, doing their job and just taking care of us, which they were. Every night, we would, you know, we would have a different staff member at our table eating, to eat dinner with, and we really got to know them and learn a lot about them. I mean, there were guys, there were, you know, the kitchen staff, the housekeeping staff, you know, the managers, and so we met a lot of different people, and basically, you know, got to learn about their lives, and so it was really really nice. Also, at every camp, we had to put on our own show, and through this travel club, the first thing that always comes up when you're faced with, you have to put on your own show, is somebody brings up, hey, we'll do the hokey pokey. And so outside the United States, everybody knows the hokey pokey because of this. But the people that I was traveling with, another couple that were good friends, and my cousin, we decided, no, we're not going to do the hokey pokey. We were really impressed with how well that people were helping us on this trip. So we decided to perform Help by the Beatles, which was really interesting because everybody in the camp, they'd never heard that before. And so that was really interesting. So in Help, I Need Somebody, you know, I was younger then, younger than today, never needed help from anybody, but, you know, help in every way. And so that was a good learning experience for them, because we got to share, some things from our perspectives as Americans.
Right. Wonderful. Oh.
We finally got to see lions in Botswana, and there was in Okavango data. We saw some in Chobe as well. You know, it's during the day, and they're sleeping. You know, you could hear them at night. You could hear major roaring out, near the camps, and you could see eyes and all that kind of stuff. And so these guys aren't going really anywhere. So I had to add some liveliness. So this is shot at 100 millimeters. So I put my knee in, in the shot just to give you perspective. They think that, if you're part of the vehicle, you're part of the vehicle, you're not meat and whatnot.
You're nice and close.
Nice and close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This is, they're called kudos. They're beautiful, beautiful animal. This was taken. I did a burst shot because these guys were moving. And one of the things I started experimenting with when I was putting together this photo album was taking burst shots. One second here.
Call.
We're taking burst shots and taking them and making them into a panorama. kind of like the same thing that, when you take a picture on your iPhone, a live picture, it kind of merges it all into one. Well, you can actually do that same thing in Lightroom and get a pretty decent panorama shot. And what this really also brings out is that landscape of the Okavango Delta. You see all those kind of green plants. Those are all spices, mainly sage. The smell is just smells so much like, you're cooking dinner or whatever. You have a turkey dinner, and then it shows all the termite lines, and it's just this landscape. It's just very, very beautiful and soothing. It was one of my favorite places, and I would love to go back there. Okay.
Oh.
This is a shot where the sensors on your camera don't work right because there's a sage, but the overall effect is really, really pleasing. At least the eyes came into focus, but the sage bush in there. But I love the coloration of this. And this was, I think, the first leopard that we actually ended up seeing. It was very early in the morning. This was very near the camp, so he was probably running around in here. This leopard, if you look kind of just behind his ears, you can see a little something, was actually tagged. It had a collar. And not that it was a pet, but they do tag them and kind of track them and study them and stuff like that. The other ones we saw were not so much.
So that was one of the tracked leopards. Yeah. Yeah.
This was my favorite giraffe pictures because they were three together, and they were just looking at you, three different, several different kinds of angles. Nothing too magical, but it was one. My second favorite one was one of it kneeling down and licking the ground, and I took a picture of its tongue, and that was not as exciting and beautiful as that, but it was interesting. Okay.
Wow.
We weren't always taking pictures of big animals. We were actually in some little boats, paddling in the river. We were taking pictures of lily pads, and these are Jakarta eggs and stuff that you just notice as you're these little things that you see as you're going by. Also in the camp, I was going around during free time, taking pictures of plants, kind of quasi macro, photography and stuff like that. So it wasn't just about big animals. There were a lot of opportunities. The downside, and it required a lot of planning, is that the carry-on bag that we could carry, other than our regular luggage, we had a strict weight limit they were really, totally checking. Our carry-on bag was limited to 50 pounds. And so basically you had to really pick and choose what you were taking. And, I had to take my really good full frame camera, a really heavy lens, lots of SD cards, because you don't want to, you need lots of them to change out so one doesn't get ruined and you lose all your pictures. I took another camera body, and I took a kind of all-purpose lens. That was all I could fit into 50 pounds. And so some of the things that I had, some of the pictures, I would normally use something that would produce a better image. And this is one of those where, if I, had the druthers, I would have done something different. But this is kind of, using almost a kit lens you know, to actually take this. And it you know, it's nice, but it's not as nice as it could have been.
Looks like somebody took a Sharpie all over those eggs.
Oh, it does.
That's
But the birds
amazing.
What's a
also
Jakarta,
are
then?
totally beautiful too.
What's a Jakarta?
It's a type of bird. It's a water bird, and they're just really beautiful too. The eggs were really interesting.
Lovely.
Tender moments, again, a kudo. And then not only are there tender moments, there are violent moments and whatnot. So let's just go to the next one.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you got to eat, right?
Yeah, you got to eat. That's an Impala there, the McDonald's of the bush, and whatnot. I have some that kind of show the eye, but that one is they're doing a lot of shaking. There were actually 2 leopards that actually had this animal, and this was the second one. My cousin was in the Jeep that was there first, and the content of his pictures are to die for. He was shooting with a point and shoot, and they were all blown out, but the actual content was so much better than what I got. Was unreal. But yeah, this guy was there for a while, and not too long after he left that, I'm sure that that one came back for that. But yeah.
What is that piece of canvas there, or whatever it is?
That's a carcass.
Carcass.
What?
That's an actual Impala. He's eating an Impala.
I know that, but what I don't understand is the white piece there.
The white, like in this kind of in the lower left, it's
Well,
a white belly.
That's the white belly.
Yeah, it's a white belly.
It looks like a piece of carpeting.
It does. But they're called the Impalas are called the McDonald's of the bush. One, because they're a lot of them, and they're meat, but also on their backside they've got the golden arches or whatever. They've got these brown stripes that look like.
Oh, that's funny.
Did you see other animals come in for this kill?
No. This is last night in the bush. You know, again, perfecting the sunset picture. This is HDR, and you know, it's doing some significant underexposure, and then bringing out that light. And this was just a very magical, kind of last. The game drive wasn't so special that night. We didn't see a lot, but it was just a very nice mood, and this was a fantastic sunset.
Yes, I agree. Oh, look at that.
And luckily, Victoria Falls was still flowing. Not long after that, the falls went down to a trickle, and I don't know what they're doing now. But this is from a helicopter taking a picture, of Victoria Falls. That was totally spectacular.
Yeah.
We did an extension on the trip to go to Cape Town. The botanical gardens were amazing, and this was trying to do kind of quasi macro with the limited equipment that I had, and these type of flowers, the proteas, they're native to South Africa. Saw them kind of in some wild settings and also in the gardens, and then this was more in a indoor enclosure, so you could get really up close and personal to it, and they're just beautiful flowers. Took a tour of townships, both black and mixed race townships. Also had dinner with a family one night and got to have a pretty reasonable discussion about life and education and things like that. Sometimes those things are very staged. Some of it was, but it was really very open and frank, and had a really good discussion with you know the host and their family. This picture is of the Smiley Women, okay? And the reason they're called Smiley Women, not because they smile, but they have these sheep heads that you can see on the log, and one sitting on the ground below. And this is like a township kind of delicacy where they basically take and use a branding iron to basically char this meat, and then it's sold. There were a number of these women. They had one of their daughters there, and there was a anthropologist from some university that was actually studying their culture and whatnot. Did not spend a lot of time talking with the anthropologist, but I spent my time kind of photographing this. The key thing here was trying to capture the smoke. And one of the things that I learned in my intermediate class is with smoke and fog and stuff, sometimes you have to overexpose the picture to actually get that. And so that's what I did, and I was able to capture that smoke in a better way. These ladies would have this, because of all this fire and smoke that they were dealing with, they had this grease kind of paint that they would put on their face. Some of the other photos, and particularly the young daughter, had lots of grease paint on there and whatnot. So it was kind of interesting. But it was the townships were very interesting. It provided a different perspective. I would it's not good to be black or mixed race in South Africa. There's just still with since post-apartheid, there's still such a vast difference between housing, job opportunities. It's better, but it's not good.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it.
That's it. We're back to Sunday pilgrims. Yeah, I love the way they wear the white. It looks very religious.
The light is really great on that.
It's turquoise kind of things.
Oh yeah, the turquoise. I see that too. So, okay.
It was really, one of the things that was really interesting on Sunday in Johannesburg. You saw no white people, none, nada.
Wow. They just kind of stayed indoors the whole time, or went to church, and then
they're just like gone. They're out. They're out in the countryside or somewhere and whatnot. And everything has razor wire on all the houses. If you haven't read Born a Crime, it is a wonderful book. It's serious, but at the same time, Trevor Noah is funny as all get out, and his life experiences in that thing were hilarious.
I read the book; it's excellent, and his mother she's an amazing woman.
Yes.
Talk about gutsy. Wow. So anyhow, does anybody else have any questions or comments or for Tom?
Nice job, Tom. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
What
Tom.
an adventure.
Yes.
Someday I'll get there.